Welcome to the Wireless Federation webinar and thought leadership series. Today we are doing a session on customer experience covering best practices with Mohamed El Toumy, who has held multiple CX roles at Ooredoo and Orange.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jay from the Wireless Federation in London. I've got a special guest with us at the Wireless Federation webinar series we conduct quarterly. We've got Mohamed El Toumy with us, who's an industry CX and research veteran. He's been part of the industry for about 24 years now. He's held roles recently at Orascom, at Nielsen. Previously, I engaged with him, so we kind of go, way back to me. So I think we interacted while he was at Ooredoo. So at Ooredoo, he's held CX roles at Qatar, as well as managing opcos of Ooredoo in multiple markets, and previously at Orange in Egypt. So with that, Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you. A quick background about yourself would definitely help. You've been, part of Ooredoo and Orange, handling CX roles for multiple markets, and it'd be great to learn from your experiences around CX. Over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for the introduction. Thanks a lot. Actually, I would like to introduce myself where I started back in 1998, where my first summer job was an usher at Orange Egypt. It was Mobinil at that time. I was at the door on the launch day back in July. So I would like always happy to highlight that I have started it from where I interacted with customers. The first one who met the first customer for Orange was me and my colleagues at that time. So, and then I started to climb the ladder from usher to maybe a little bit of sales, business analysis, and then I went into the marketing department, where I started my career as a marketing research. And this where I took my career. And I have studied marketing diploma and started my MBA as well at that time, back in 1999 as well. Then I went to Qatar in 2006. Looking after marketing research and customer insights, competitive intelligence, market intelligence. And then I expanded my role in Qatar in CX. So actually my output from market research became my input for customer experience.
Right. Interesting.
And I spent like around 12 years in Qatar, shared between the operations as Qatar Telecom or Ooredoo as an operator. And then I moved to Ooredoo Group, where we overlooked other subsidiaries as well. And this is where I deep dived into CX fully. And this is where I had a really great experience in customer experience. And then I returned back to Egypt in 2018, worked for Nielsen. So I joined the kitchen for a couple of years, and then I started working as a consultant or as a freelancer. And my last assignment was in Oman, Orascom subsidiary there called Moria, where I overlooked marketing research and customer experience as well.
Right. Lovely. Lovely. So you started with the research, followed by, customer operations, followed by customer journey, followed by customer experience, back into research. So great. Perfect. So ladies and gentlemen, there are 5 major themes and agendas we would dive into today with Mohamed El Toumy. We'll start by looking at what is CX and how do we kind of embed CX into the DNA to really become customer centric as an organization. CX mostly has been in the industry, but some operators at least even today are struggling to make CX at the heart of the operations. And unfortunately, sometimes CX is treated to be as an independent function, while it's supposed to be at the center of everything we do in the telco business. So we will dive into ACF framework, perhaps role of top management of how do we become more customer centric. At the same time, we will delve deeper into how do we sort of measure CX. Mohamed has a lot of exposure while he was at Ooredoo. He was involved in carrying out the Voice of Customer program for multiple markets like Tunisia, like Iraq, like Qatar, like Palestine, like Indonesia. So we'll probably look at VOC as well, followed by how in the pandemic operators are now trying to make digital habits permanent, and why is it essential for us to integrate digital in the journey, in the customer experience. I also want to say that there is a lot to learn. So we've, as a research company, as an analyst firm, we've seen that a lot of digital first operators and digital only telcos are trying to offer what we call as the Amazon-like experience. They are trying to move from the telco to becoming technology companies, and digital is now at the heart of CX. Lastly, we will talk about employee experience and the human element in CX. So these are five major agendas we'll delve deeper into. So with that, Mohamed, let's try to talk about what is customer experience. Perhaps over the years, have there been multiple definitions according to you? And like we said, why is it important to kind of embed that in the DNA for telcos to become customer centric? Mohamed, thanks.
Thanks, Jay. Actually, I love aligning and making sure that everybody, because as you mentioned, based on what I have seen, when you start a program or even an initiative regarding under the umbrella of customer experience, you find out after a while that people are not really aligned, or they had their own impression or perception about CX. So it's better to start our discussion with what is CX and what is customer experience. So as simple as it is everything that customer goes through. It's the end-to-end experience that your customer goes through. It's not customer service department. It's not the call center or the retail. It's not marketing. It's everything the customer goes through from the day he started hearing about you until he churn or repurchase from you. So it's more of any transaction the customer go through with the company. So this is very critical because sometimes the adoption of the CX or the placement of the CX as an initiative sometimes is misplaced in a call center or in a retail team or a customer service head look after it, and that's
right.
It. So actually wider than that. Why is it important? As you can see, telco now is in terms of maturity and saturation is becoming very high, and now customers are picking on other things than the basics. Like it's not the network or the prices anymore. People are differentiating service providers based on the experience and how they feel and engage with the operator and how they are provided help, not just basic services. Yet it is key and core to provide a good, stable network and good prices, but what's after? When you have multiple players in the market, so how are we going to differentiate? So now it's not becoming a luxury or nice to have, it's becoming a must. Customers need to be treated in a better way, else he will be leaving you and searching for a better service level.
Right.
So we have learned from research that many customers, and this has been proven, that who even rated you as satisfied, any customer will give you 7 or 8 out of 10 in terms of satisfaction. We found them actually leaving you to the competition, not because they hate you, but because they have found a better value or a better experience there. So hence the metrics that we are going to talk about later is important. When we talk about customer experience, then we are talking about loyalty and engagement, and the best to measure that is the Net Promoter Score, the NPS.
Right.
So always keep an eye on what you are measuring and making sure that your customer engagement is quite high. So it's more of like a 9 and 10 out of 10. This is where the customers will start forgiving you when you do a mistake, will wait
Right.
for you to fix things around and even convey to you if you have done any issue or you have any problem. They will happily tell you what's going wrong so you can fix it. So, and as we all know, retaining customers is much cheaper than and bringing in new customers. So it's always better to make sure that you focus on CX and adopt it, and it's not a luxury anymore, it's a must-have.
Right, right. In fact, I'm not trying to digress a bit, but I'm curious to know for our audience listening here, while you were at Ooredoo, and I understand that you were also involved in Voice of Customer, you were probably involved in going deeper into tracking the NPS and CSAT scores each month, each quarter for various companies of Ooredoo. Did you guys at that point start using, other than NPS and CSAT, did you guys start using customer effort score, or what is now popularly being known as Net Easy Score? Right. So for our audience, we all know customer effort score is essentially the effort put by customers in a particular journey, right? So for example, if I am traveling to Dubai, I'm at the airport, and if I want to activate my roaming pack, right, before I fly to Dubai, how easy, what is the effort I need to put? How easy is to activate my roaming pack? I mean, does it take me, a minute to activate, or does it take me 4 hours, right? What is my journey, and what is my experience there, right? So, Mohammed, want to understand at Ooredoo, in those days, back then, did you guys start using customer effort score as a metric? Tell us a bit about that. Thanks.
Sure. When we kicked off the customer experience at Ooredoo, specifically Qatar, as it was the flagship, our main metrics was the customer satisfaction. This what we used to measure, and what we kept using because you do have a history and trends.
Right.
And then we started adopting the NPS because it's more stronger in terms of loyalty.
Right.
And then we have tried the customer effort scores when we started launching and rolling out the CX program across other operators.
Right.
Some could actually prefer the customer effort score.
Right.
But I have to highlight two things here. It's beware that what you are measuring has some limitations. So when we say NPS, as long as we know exactly what it is measuring and what it could be risky if we consider it measuring it. So ideally, NPS is a loyalty measure. It's an engagement score. So it's better to be on a high level. Do not take it into a transaction level. I do know some of well-known operators are using TNPS as a transactional NPS, and it is not the best measure. This is where the CES comes in. This is where the effort score comes in, because when it comes to transaction, doing something on your application or doing a specific task from a customer service point of view, it's better to use the CS. NPS, keep it for the brand engagement, keep it for the company relationship, because it's quite wide and it moves a lot. Those who have worked with NPS knows that it's very volatile measure and some limitations. Always make sure that you keep satisfaction on the other side is very stable measure. And that could be a drawback for it because it's very stable. Whatever you do, unless it's something significant, then you can start seeing something in that. So, but the bottom line, this is the second thing that I want to mention, is regardless the measure that you are using, regardless. I think as you pick a KPI or a measure and start measuring the trend of it. So despite its pros and cons, and there will be some errors and some issues with the metrics that you are using, but what is more important than the absolute number that you are getting from the score, it's the trend. Are you actually improving or actually deteriorating? So this matters more.
Trend is important. And can we say then that, the new NPS is now Net Easy Score or Customer Effort Score? In some way?
If you are going to limit it for transaction, I will definitely support it even better than NPS. But you still need the standard NPS to measure the relation with the company and the brand.
Right. Sure. Okay, let's now get into maybe let's talk about CX framework and how is it important for the top management to be involved. How do we become in fact, I don't know if that's correct, but I remember Orange, even today, follows a approach called the C3, which is customer-centric culture. So how do we become more customer-centric, and what is the role? You talked about a Virgin example in one of our chats earlier. Does that example fit here?
Yeah, Virgin will, anything related to Virgin will fit anywhere in the CX.
Sure.
Because of Richard Branson, the godfather of CX. But it's more of when it comes to employee experience, it fits more. But taking from what you have just highlighted is why and the role of management, and it's actually growing into being more customer centric. Then there is a method of doing it. It's not just an idea or an initiative that everybody is excited about when you launch it, and then it loses traction or it fade away. So how do you maintain traction and make sure it's embedded in the company and the culture of everyone?
Yeah.
And this we'll talk about when we discuss the framework. But I would like to highlight something as a transitional going to it. So this is for some organizations, the customer experience is intentionally designed. When you say McDonald's, when you say Disney, or we say Starbucks, or all these big names, Amazon, Apple, these guys do design it intentionally. So whatever you're going through when you visit them is intentionally designed. It's not left to chance or random.
Yeah.
So this is where we want to go. So now we have some issues with our operations. We need to be more consistent. We need to start designing the experience. But in order to design it, first you need to measure it. So what is the framework for you to successfully be more customer-centric and maintain that centricity across your operation? So first of all, unless it's a startup, you need to start measuring it. But usually, most of the cases that I've encountered is that there is already a current operation struggling a little bit with CX, whether it's fixing the basics or whether with the brand or whatever, or pricing, whatever. But there is usually an issue, and that's why you are called for help. But there is some kind of information that you have in the organization, and this information is usually marketing research or internal data or business intelligence data or some competitive intelligence that will give you an idea on the current experience. Okay, so you need to complement that if it does miss some operational and strategic measures like the brand measures and the customer satisfaction, all touch points, channels, everything is measured. Then you start to design the experience. So we start measuring. The next step is to design it, and then design it in terms of journey moments, not just operations or functions, because most of the cases your departments are structured from a functional point of view, like finance, marketing, sales, strategy, whatever. But if you want to be customer-centric, you need to operate in a customer-centric manner as well. So you need to map and you need to design the experience based on journey moments. From the day you hear about you, start interacting, signing a contract, adding service, requesting service, needing help, experiencing the network, exiting, churning, whatever the experience is, you need to design and make sure, back to the measure, that your measures are actually plotted or matched against those journey moments. And if they are not, you need to make sure that they are. Okay, so that's the second step. The third step is actually implementing the measures and also implementing initiatives. So one of the good things that I have always recommended and I've always experienced is to have a cross-functional team, a representative from all the organization, where you do have a steering committee headed by the CEO or the top management. And this is back to your question, what is the role of the top management? The top management are there to embrace, encourage, not push in a negative way, but make sure that there is traction, that it is highlight how important it is to everyone to observe that this is an important initiative. This is we are changing our DNA to be more and more customer centric. So actually management will own it from support point of view, and they will promote it and get the
Right.
buy-in from everyone across the
Right.
organization. They will
Right.
engage employees. They will build excitement,
Yeah.
and definitely kick off the initiative itself. But
Yeah.
then you pass it to the working group, where they
Right.
are the day-to-day follow-up on terms of the measures and initiatives, the project that needs to be launched related to customer experience. So
Right.
this is more of a nutshell, who owns it, and but that second question to answer, to complete answering your question, is where does it sit actually?
Yeah.
Because I have seen companies or organizations that adopt it, and as I mentioned earlier, they place it in the contact center.
Yeah.
It's good, and sometimes it's needed because you may have some basics that need to be fixed. So it's better to be close to the operations and the day-to-day issues to fix the
Right.
basics. But it's not everything. It has to be linked to the brand and values and the company strategy as well. So, and other organizations, and I've seen, and actually the majority are placing the CX in the top management, like the CEO office. They
Yeah.
have the CX. There is even CXOs as well now, which is
Yeah.
very good because you will get the power and empowerment and
Right.
push, but you may lose exposure on the details and the day-to-day operations. So where does
Right.
it sit? And this is where I will recommend actually to sit in the marketing department, because marketing, as
Yeah.
a definition, they are the ones who own the customer experience.
Right. Right.
And they are going to mediate between the top management and reporting to them what's going on, and also having an eye and a window on what's going on operational level. So it's
Right.
better to be there. But again, there is no right or wrong. It
There's
depends
no
on
right or
the
wrong. Yeah.
maturity of the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, in context of ownership, we have at Wireless Federation carried out a number of CX projects in the last, I think, 15 years or so. And I remember, Mohammed, back in the day, so if I take you back to 2015 or 16, without naming the operator, a leading operator in Africa, in Nigeria, and they operate in multiple countries. The CX manager, the head of customer experience, was actually reporting directly to the CEO and the CEO office, in order to highlight how important is CX, right? So that was sort of 10 years, that was sort of 8 years back. And now what we see, like you said, marketing mostly owns it. But I'd like to add that while marketing is owning it in a lot of operators, there is a CX manager sitting in different functions or different channels, owning that particular ship. So one journey, a CX manager responsible for contact center, another CX manager responsible for digital channels, looking after app and its UX and UI, and alongside another CX manager sitting at retail. And I think they together then kind of collaborate with the marketing CX team, maybe further working with the chief customer officer in some cases. So like you said, there's no right or wrong, but I think one message that I could derive, Mohammed, from what you said today is CX design is important. A lot of organizations, whether that's telcos, whether that's SaaS companies, technology companies like Apple, Amazon, etc., design is intentional, and importantly, what you can measure, you can manage, right? So it's important to measure, to be able to manage CX. Perfect. Moving on to agenda number 3, Mohammed. I'd like to now go slightly deeper. You talked about measure. I'd now slightly want to go deeper into how do we kind of measure CX? How do we try to enhance CX? And if you want to, we could also, you could support it with some examples from Orange, from Ooredoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe talk about, some voice of customer programs you ran. Thanks.
Sure. VOC is the answer in terms of the measure and the methodology to measure. And I'm not talking here about a high-tech, fully functional digital platform that sits on your CRM and it automatically triggers questions and feedback to the system. It could be as simple as a callback after a transaction, and you get the feedback, and based on that feedback, you feed it into operations if it's needed to, or make sure that VOC, it has to start as more of like a radar, where the beam is there and it's measuring everything.
Yeah.
Once you start getting something that is suffering an issue, a network outage, a call center issue, whatever it is, you need to jump in and fix it. That's why voice of customer programs or surveys or whatever you name it needs to be near real time, if not real time, especially in telcos, because telco is extremely dynamic, not like other industries. So you need to have it real time, because you need to proactively jump in and fix it before other customers start experiencing it.
Right.
And it will reflect a proper experience in terms of actually getting a message that there was a network problem and we have fixed it. It's something like I haven't noticed that. So it shows that you look after my experience even before I noticed it. So and that's one of it in terms of customer, how they perceive you looking after them. The second one is in terms of cost of fixing, because it could be something very small that could be quickly fixed, or if left for days or weeks, it could actually get more complicated and be more costly to fix it. So it's always better to get the insights measured on a real-time basis. For the VOC spectrum, it's everything, as you mentioned, everything, and I mean everything, starting from the brand itself. So ideally, you should have identified your brand values, your like the statements or the imagery and values that you want your customers to see you or perceive you based on them. Like if you are X company, you want to be seen as the providing the best experience, you provide the best network experience. If you want to pick on a network, or the providing the best prices, or the wide coverage of services, vast. So again, you need to pick what is your competitive edge in terms of operations, and then start measuring them. And ideally, it has to be also blended with some relations or engagement elements, like see it as they care for me. This company actually respects my needs or listens to me. So, and then you start measuring those. So this is more of the brand level and the brand value. This is usually measured through a brand equity or brand health study. Ideally, external agency through a benchmarking with other players in the market. Hence, it's more of an outsourced. VOC or voice of customer platforms, or even standard surveys, callbacks, it needs to be internal. This is your operational feedback. This is your day-to-day, our transaction by transaction, where you get the feedback. Usually, it's not benchmarked. It's your so you benchmark yourself against your norms and your standards. That's where the trend comes in. So on average, this is your service level. If something went wrong, that's an alarm that you need to see what's going on. The complaints is in increase. Why? So you need to jump in and analyze the complaint. Exactly. After the brand, you're talking about the channels. This is where the call center comes in, your shops and retail and digital channels, the apps and the self-service machines. If you have some internal reporting, and it doesn't have to be the same methodology. Some of them could be just reporting from the system. Some of them could be internal data. Some of them could be callbacks and reaching out to them. Some of them could be app-based. It could be, because the beauty of the VOC, and that's based on my experience in Ooredoo Group, you actually tend to identify the type of customer that it will dictate how you are going to reach out to him. So for VIP and the royal family and the corporates, you tend to reach to them via email, or some of them actually don't reach to them that frequently. So you tend to keep it every 3 months or 6 months. While if it's a network feedback or a data session feedback, it could be on the phone via SMS with a link, or via a data session that you trigger. So all this based on your segments and the profile of the customer and the best approach. I do
Right.
remember that like the blue collars in Qatar,
Yeah.
they don't know Arabic, they don't know English, and we had to design the questionnaires on
Course.
SMS because at that time they did not have smartphones. So we had to reach out to them to get their feedback. So we designed the SMS in Urdu for some of
Right.
them, Malayalam and
Local,
other
yeah.
languages, and they respond their SMS. And that's where the beauty of the digital and the platforms where you have really wonderful suppliers there to help you design it in the best language, best methodology, and best way to reach out to customers.
Right, right. Interesting. So you're saying, feedback loop, surveys, etc., are important to measure CX. But I think how the industry is now kind of evolving, that it's not just about the customer and the experience, but it's also important of what kind of experience do we offer from a brand experience perspective, or purchase experience, or care experience, or network experience, like you said, perhaps loyalty experience, perhaps digital experience, right? So there could be multiple aspects of CX. Absolutely, absolutely. Perfect. While we look at CX, and we kind of talked about this in the past, and one or two conversations you and I have had outside of this webinar, we've looked at how multiple operators like Vodafone and others in Europe are advancing to sort of make digital habits permanent. What are your thoughts and opinions on how operators are now trying to integrate digital in the journey or in CX, or is digital able to accelerate or enhance CX in a better way? And I'm saying because when it comes to traditional channel like a contact center, or when it comes to a retail channel, the experience is very dependent on that particular human being, right? I mean, in simple words, if that guy at the store had a fight with his wife, the the experience that would be offered to the customer, unfortunately, would also be pathetic, and hence brand experience would suffer. So is digital also a great way for us to accelerate, perhaps enhance CX? Please tell us more about it. Thanks.
Thanks. This is very, very important topic and question. Thank you, Jay, for that. Definitely, the answer is yes. The short answer is definitely it is and should be improving, and your efficiency and effectiveness of reaching out and them reaching you and serving them in a more consistent, fast, simple, consistent way. Yet, what I have noticed, honestly, is that some organizations fast track it quickly in the organization and impose it quickly on customers where customers not ready for it. And I have experienced it hands-on, and I can even remember back in the day when we had the self-service machines.
Yeah.
Customers by default, like you need to pay your bill, you need to recharge, you can use it, and it is in the shop as well, in the retail stores, but customers still prefer to queue and wait for in the line to get served. This is again, you need to make sure the customers do not like change, and it's a human nature. So this is where it will take time. This is what I'm trying to say here. It's important and it's valuable to them, but they need to know that it is valuable to them. You need to show them how it is.
Right.
So I do remember at that time we slowed down the pace a little bit in our stores, and we started taking customers in the queue. Okay, we had some ushers around, asking them, this service machine is empty, can come here, I can show you how you can pay your bill. And actually,
Right.
it's quite amazing how customers from the first or the second time,
So educating customers.
Exactly. So the first important topic is that do not rush it. Okay.
Right.
Do not impose it quickly. Second, make sure that your employees as well understand the scope of it and that it's here to help them. It's
Right.
not going to replace them, because I have seen cases where the frontliners are quite afraid that the new app or the new channel that we are launching is actually it's a risk on their job, and it's
Yeah.
going to replace them. Digital CX is another dimension of serving customers. It's not replacing the traditional channels. In fact, you are improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the current channel. So if I can do something through the bots or through the apps, yet I leave the complaints and the complex issues that need some description and negotiation to a one-to-one. That's why at the end of the IVR or the end, please press X to speak to someone.
Yeah.
It's always there. But what I'm afraid of is where I have seen it, where customers will skip to go and speak with someone, because either they do not understand that it's actually they can be served through the bot or through the digital channel, or they are not they are against change. So you need to teach them, they need to show them how, remind them, even when they reach to the agent after serving him, can highlight that, by the way, if you press 2, you will get this, and you can even get your bill amount if you do this, and it can be even emailed to you. You can even have a copy instead of me telling you. So, like, highlighting the importance of it. This is the second point. The third critical point is, why are we doing it first place? Because and I have seen it, it's not the norm, but I have seen it that management are embracing the digital CX to lower the cost. It's okay. It's business, and we need to make sure that we are efficiently
reduce the cost to service.
Yeah, but it cannot be the sole reason why you are doing this, because they started with overseas call centers or outsourcing call center, and then you are having a lower experience to your customers. But in fact, cost is something that you look at, definitely, but at the same time is how you design it. And this takes us to the fourth point, is when you design it, you have to put in mind, again, back to your beginning introduction, customer centricity. Because if customers do not find it simple and easy to use, or it doesn't have the content that he's looking for, he's going to skip. You cannot outsmart the customer. You cannot. So that's my key takeout.
Yeah. No, very interesting. So we've had a lot of opportunity recently, Mohamed, at Wireless Federation, where, during pandemic, post-pandemic, mostly the last sort of 2 years or so, we had the opportunity to work closely with a lot of CX teams, a lot of digital teams amongst the operators in Middle East, Africa, parts of Europe. And we also run a lot of workshops. We do master classes on CX with them. And there's one common trend that we noticed that's happening in the industry, thanks to the pandemic, by the way, which is operators are now trying to make digital habits permanent and move to what is called phygital, right? Which is physical and digital kind of married together. Yeah. And I think a lot of operators, AT&T in the US, TELUS in Canada, Vodafone in multiple markets, some telcos in Australia, some telcos in Singapore, have leveraged and used phygital. A classic example of that, to me, is a mobile operator creating a live shop where I can go to the operator's website, and the iPhone 13 that I'm trying to buy, and I select the blue color that I want, and I select the 512 gig that I want to purchase, and I can get connected over a video call with the agent at the store instantly. And the agent at the store would know that I was looking at iPhone 13 blue color 512 gig, right? I mean, the experience is that seamless. And, while I'm sitting at home at the comfort of my sofa or bedroom, I'm able to talk to the agent, and the agent would be happy to give me a demo, or, I could actually make a purchase of that iPhone instantly. And good news is, some of these shops are actually not shops. These are studios that appear to be a store. So we've seen that operators have shut down 15 to 20% of their stores, created studios that look like a store. And some operators are actually doing about 35% of their business on these studios. So I was doing a little chat with somebody in the US, a prominent telco without naming, and they said that we are now hiring, Mohammed, a chief of digital. Yeah, we've got a chief of CX, we've got a chief of digital, and we're now hiring the chief of digital / live shop, because by 2025, we anticipate that 50% of our entire business will be run on these so-called live shops / studios, right? So I think what's happening in the industry, specifically in CX today, is the rise of digital. So absolutely. And like you said, I think one need not push digital. I think digital can be, Mohammed, a way to not push digital so much, where I'm not relying on a bot, right? But physical and digital kind of married together, right? So, like you said, digital need not be pushed, and at the same time, digital education is important. So, absolutely, great. Let's move on to our I think the last section of our chat today, and I remember particularly you mentioning, right, that this is very close to you. Right. So I mean, employee experience, human element in CX was an important aspect. So tell us more about the employee experience, Mohammed, and maybe some examples, if there are any, to share with our audience. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you, Jay. As a transition from what you just mentioned about the digital experience and moving into employee experience, the bridge here is the human element, and that's why I would like to finish my discussion on the digital experience, as the more personal, the more human it is, the better it is going to engage in customer actually prefer. And I do have an example, honestly. It's not telco, it's I subscribed for my son, my young son, on one of the learning websites called Adapted Mind, and
EdTech,
yeah, it's learning math and English and all this, so where they can make use of their summer time. And I've just noticed that my son was not using it, and I was like paying monthly X amount. It's not that big, but I felt that it's not valuable, or it's not getting any value. So I've decided to. I thought it's actually too much to pay for something that he rarely used. So I went there. I canceled my everything. There's no human element in it yet. It is personal. So when I canceled, automatically I got a question of the reason why you are canceling, and it's important to get the feedback. So and they gave me options. One of the options, that is it actually, one of them was, is it related to price? And for me, yes, it's like it's high price for me because I'm not getting value. It's not value for money for me. And I said yes. And then, is your son using it rarely or free? I said rarely or whatever. So they were quite keen to understand why. And since it's related to price, they thanked me. And then automatically I got a message and an email confirming that your son has now moved to a free scholarship. So he is now going to, because we as a company, and this is what I loved about the brand and their values, because we as the company believe that education should not be affected by cost or prices. So that's why your son is now on a full scholarship. I loved it, even though it was not the main issue, but I loved how personal it becomes. This will take me to the employee experience. And in all honesty, out of my experience in customer experience or research, or in any organization that I've worked with, it all goes back to people. It's all about people. and you will not move an inch if you do not consider people. And people here could be your own employees, could be your customers, could be your anyone that you deal with, the
Shop
human.
agents. Yeah.
Exactly. Vendors, the relation with suppliers, with so the office boy, the security guys, everyone plays a role in the experience, whether it's inside the company or with the customer. So,
Yeah.
and this takes us to many. I have seen programs failed because of the disengagement, because you
Right.
have not checked that your employees are not actually bought in, or they are not aligned with you. They do not
Yeah.
go the extra mile. And this is what I loved about Sir Richard Branson, where his statement is, take care of your people and they will take care of your customer. And this is quite true. Do not
Right.
bother much. If you really put and invest in your people, they will automatically run and go after your customer, make sure that they are happy as well. Because if the employee is not happy, forget it. You are not going anywhere. So this is, sometimes I always feel that it's taken lightly, or it's somehow they are busy with the digital experience transformation, CX initiatives, investing in lots of systems and CRMs, and yet they forget about the employee. So my advice here is in your framework, when you have the customer experience program or function or whatever department, always make sure that the employee experience is measured. And this is not only customer, you have your employee. So make sure that the employee satisfaction is there. Make sure that what I loved about the initiative that we had in Ooredoo Group is that the framework does have the employee experience module. And we started by doing focus groups with the employees across, and it was quite open, like please speak your mind. Tell us what are your challenges. And we found actually very simple issues like outsourced stuff, like the difference between the Qataris and the non-Qataris. Very simple things that just pay a little bit of attention, and the reward was amazing. People are fully engaged because they were heard, and now they are respected and they are treated properly.
Yeah.
They went the extra mile. So and I have one example really that touched
Take
me.
care of your people, and your people will take care of your customers.
Exactly. We were blessed having Mr. Walid Said, Allah yarhamu, where he was dealing with one of my team when I went to the group in Qatar. They told me that there was a very nice initiative after we launched the voice of customer. One of the good things about the voice of customer is that the feedback.
Yeah.
And we were lucky because one of the customers did mention the agent name. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So what I loved about it is how the top management, and this is a showcase how management has to embrace and showcase. So when the team reported this to the COO at that time, Walid Said, he immediately went to the agent. He did not know. That's the beauty of the real time. It was, I think, a couple of days after that incident. The incident was simply the agent actually left the shop open after working hours because the customer was in a hurry and he was going to the airport and he needed something regarding his roaming package. And the agent actually went the extra mile by reopening the shop for him and fixing his issue. But the beauty is that the customer thanked and mentioned, they definitely gave a good rating and mentioned his name. What I like about it is how the management took it as a way to celebrate success.
Right.
They went there, he got him an iPhone, an appreciation certificate as an employee experience award. He was touched. Everybody in the shop was really shocked, like, this is so nice. And the beauty of it is the other shops started asking, what is customer experience program that you have? What is this? How can I get an iPhone? Others who after the recognition or starting asking, how I can get an appreciation letter or a certificate. So and honestly speaking, the traction and the rollout of the VOC program started to, everybody's actually happy having it. It's more objective and it's more personal.
Right.
Another example is when Richard Branson, again, it was in Qatar. Flew to Qatar. I think it was 2012, if I'm not mistaken. At that time, there was an initiative with Virgin Mobile. At that time, and how he dealt with the spirit that he had with the call center team. He didn't waste his time with like meetings and top managements, and he went to the call center, start throwing this, soft balls, the stress balls, and they were like, the engagement, you can feel it in the air. and they were quite respected. They were privileged. Everybody was like, actually, I want to go and work in the Virgin Mobile call center because the spirit
Yeah.
is, because he is conveying and showcasing that these are your people. And actually the design of the floor is he made sure that the call center team are at the same floor as the management and marketing team. So there is no
Yeah.
time to, if there is any issue, just raise your hand and the supervisor will come. If you need someone from the management, they will come. So it's
Yeah.
a free flowing, quick,
Right.
real
Right.
time customer
Typically,
service.
they are in the suburbs, and the management is sitting in downtown. So, sure, I get that. Interesting, and that's important, right? Because I mean, they are the touch point to the customer, right? So, that's definitely important.
Exactly. There are many examples in employee experience, and honestly speaking, I will never stop talking about it.
Right.
And whenever there is a program, I will make
Right.
sure that it does have the employee experience. You measure it, you design it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You design
Yeah.
your experience, your employee experience, and make sure that they are happy
Right.
and engaged. Then you have done 80% of what you need in customer.
Right. Right. So I think broadly, to sum it up on this point, you're saying that there are external customers, there are internal customers. So partners, employees, shop agents, investors, suppliers, and you said even the security guard, right? So all of that is kind of important. The employee experience is important. Uh, um, Also, you talked about human-centered design, right? So, how do we ensure some of these aspects are actually human-centric when it comes to employee experience, or perhaps looking at um, human elements in CX, or perhaps, in other words, how do we maybe humanize the experience that we offer to our customers, specifically when we marry it to digital, as we talked about in the last question. When you gave that example, I was thinking about how a lot of operators are now trying to do awareness programs, Mohammed, for retail, for contact center teams, right? So the example you talked about, where um, one of the Ooredoo shop agents said, "What is CX, right? And how do I maybe win that iPhone? And how do I want to be, I want to kind of win that prize." So a lot of operators have now started to do, and my core message is that while CX happens at the leadership level, we need to do CX awareness, we need to do digital awareness amongst retail, amongst our frontline, amongst contact center. Because, like you said in the beginning, the frontliners actually think that digital is actually going to take away my job, right? But I think the reality is that digital is actually going to help them do better job in a efficient manner, and at the end of the day, provide a seamless, omni-channel, humanized experience. In other words, so great, Toumy. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Um, Wrapping up the show today, thank you so much for joining us. We looked at multiple aspects of how do we kind of define CX? Why is it important to be in the DNA of the company? How do we be more human, CX centric, essentially? Role of the top management in doing that. You mentioned, what we can measure, we can manage, and role of the VOC program. And then we looked at the digital and the employee aspect of CX. So with that, thank you so much, Mohammed, for your time today. It's been a great chat, and I'm hoping we can organize more webinars and probably go deeper into digital transformation in our next talks.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Jay, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mohamed.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Cheers.